The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Well, good morning. It is 5 a.m. I'm Elena Rusk, and we begin with our continuing coverage of the Sierra snowmelt and a dramatic river rescue from over the weekend. A man almost lost his life in the Kern River Saturday afternoon as rescue crews had to pull a group of kayakers out of the water. Police say one of those kayakers nearly drowned. The group, made up of 7 locals, brought a bunch of kayaks and paddle boards to the river, but shortly after getting into the water, one member of that group fell out of his kayak and was swept away by the current. You can see the video here. Fortunately, rescue crews were already staging in the area. They were able to respond quickly once they got that 911 call. They say the man was just starting to sink right before they pulled him out.
Them fell out of the kayak that they were in, and they were unable to get themselves back in it. And at that point, he was swept downriver. He got caught on some of the trees that we have in the river. The rest of the group floated further down. He advised us that he held on for about 5 minutes until he couldn't hold on anymore, and then he gave up. Our fighter, Hinkle, was able to get into the water, grab the individual because they weren't swimming anymore, and they were starting to sink and not be able to breathe anymore. And then we were able to get them to a safe location downriver where we were able to pull him then into the boat and bring him ashore.
Now, crews also helped the other kayakers and paddleboarders out of the water. They say the man who was rescued in the end only suffered some bumps and bruises. But an accident in the water turned fatal in Northern California over the weekend. It happened Saturday at Lake Duval in Livermore in the East Bay area. A man jumped into the water trying to retrieve an oar when witnesses say they saw him struggling. Divers searched through the night to recover his body. Emergency officials in the Bay Area reminding boaters it is important to wear a life jacket during any water activity.
Approximately 3:51 p.m., East Bay Park Marine officers were flagged down by a witness who had seen a man enter the water in an attempt to try to retrieve an oar. The man, after entering the water, began to struggle and was seen going underwater. The biggest danger is going out into the water without a life jacket. We want to encourage everybody to wear a life jacket, especially if you're not a strong swimmer.
All right, well, Kern County officials continuing to provide updates with the latest information, resources, and maps on potential flooding as we see all of our waterways swelling. Now, here on this video, you can scan the QR code on your screen. This will take you directly to our website, where we have gathered all of the most important links in one place for you. You can view the latest aerial flood inundation maps from County Fire to assess the risk to your home or business. You can monitor the inflow and outflow data at the Isabella Dam, courtesy of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And remember to subscribe to Ready Kern, which provides emergency alerts in real time right to your phone. Meantime, a potentially scary scene prompting an emergency shutdown on Highway 178 through the canyon this weekend. Take a look at those big cracks in the road near the edge of a cliff with the rushing water undermining the road, according to officials. This part of the canyon is closed. Drivers are urged to use alternate routes. The CHP says there is no estimated time for the 178 to reopen. Meanwhile, Highway 155 also remains closed due to storm damage from the winter. So the recommended detour in and out of the Kern River Valley is through Tehachapi on Highway 58 down to the 14 in the desert and back onto the 178 from the east side. Well, in other local headlines, a 2-alarm fire had Kern County fire crews dousing the flames of a structure fire in Arvin. That fire happening a little bit before 3 p.m. yesterday. You can see the flames and the black smoke in the air. Now, a fire 2 years ago in this same area burned down the Peters Funeral Home. This latest fire, an ongoing investigation. All right, now let's head over to Capitol Hill and the debt limit showdown as President Biden announced a debt ceiling deal between the White House and Congress yesterday that would raise the debt ceiling for 2 years, avoiding a potential catastrophic default. But as NBC's Bree Jackson reports, the deal still needs congressional approval.
After weeks of slow progress, a breakthrough on debt ceiling negotiations, the White House and Republicans reached a bipartisan deal over the weekend.
The agreement prevents the worst possible crisis, a default.
The agreement extends the government's current debt limit for 2 years in exchange for spending cuts. There are no changes to Medicaid, but there will be work requirements for certain people on food stamp programs, a major sticking point during talks.
It's not 100% what everybody wants, but when you look, the country is going to be stronger. This is going to be transformational.
Members from both parties are praising the last-minute deal to avoid a government default.
Overwhelmingly, Republicans in this conference are going to support the deal. How could they not? It is a fantastic deal.
But other Republicans and some progressives raise concerns.
You know, I'm not a big fan of in principle or frameworks. That's always, a problem if you can't see the exact legislative text.
President Biden says the budget deal is good news for Americans.
I strongly urge both chambers to pass that agreement.
Lawmakers must act fast, but will have a little more breathing room. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that the default deadline is extended to June 5th. And the House is expected to vote on the debt ceiling bill on Wednesday. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
All right, turning now to a crazy high-speed chase on the Grapevine. 4 armed robbery suspects now in custody after trying to get away and hitting speeds of up to 100 miles an hour. Okay, so it all began in Bakersfield. The suspects accused of robbing a shopper at gunpoint at the Valley Plaza Mall. Officers say the suspect drove erratically through narrow roads and busy intersections to get onto the 5. The chase ended in Castaic when officers say the suspect's car became stuck on a dirt road. Those 4 suspects did try to run for it, but eventually surrendered. And now to a signature issue here at KGAT, pedestrian safety. And in developing news, a man is dead after being hit by an SUV in Oildale Saturday night. The CHP says the crash happened around North Chester and East Warren Avenues. Officers saying a 40-year-old man was walking outside of the crosswalk when he was hit. That man pronounced dead at the scene, and CHP says alcohol and drugs do not appear to be factors in this crash. And a motorcyclist hit and killed on the road over the weekend. This happening yesterday morning in Oildale. Police say a driver ran the red light, hitting the motorcyclist at an intersection. He was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. That driver remained at the scene, and officers say he is cooperating with the investigation. Also in Oildale this weekend, a man rushed to the hospital after getting stabbed. It happened Saturday afternoon when deputies say the 47-year-old victim was found on Lincoln Avenue. Investigators say the suspect in this stabbing is being described as a 31-year-old man standing 5 feet 6 inches tall, and they say he is bald. He was last seen wearing tan pants and a white shirt. Anyone with information is asked to call the sheriff's office at 861-3110, or you can use the secret witness hotline at 322-4040. A 58-year-old Bakersfield man is behind bars accused of offering drugs and sex to an officer posing as a teenage girl. Police say Donald Allman was taken into custody last week, accused of communicating with an undercover investigator online for several weeks and repeatedly offering drugs as part of his efforts to meet and have sex with who he believed was a 15-year-old girl. Allman has pleaded not guilty to several charges. He is due back in court next month. All right, making news around the state, a former billionaire set to spend her first days behind bars. As disgraced Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes must report to prison this week. Holmes was convicted on fraud and conspiracy charges last year. She raised nearly $1 billion from investors for her company by promising a device that could screen for hundreds of diseases with just a few drops of blood. That technology, however, never materialized, and the company folded. Her lawyers contend she deserves a new trial, citing mistakes and misconduct they claimed during her first trial. However, tomorrow she should begin her sentence at the Bryan prison camp in Texas. Well, 17 News is your local election headquarters, and election 2024, a top-of-mind topic, of course, this weekend, as thousands of California Democrats gathered in Southern California for the party's state convention. Capitol correspondent Eitan Wallace has the message attendees say they want to relay to California voters.
Well, as you can see, they're packing up now after what was a busy weekend for California Democrats here at the downtown LA Convention Center. But as this comes to a close, those in attendance tell me they feel energized to act on the following 4 words: get out the vote.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Democrats.
With that, the California State Democratic Party convention officially came to an end Sunday, marking the conclusion of a 4-day conference focused on the party and especially election 2024. Much of the attention here going to these three major Democratic U.S. Senate candidates, Congressmembers Barbara Lee, Adam Schiff, and Katie Porter, each vying for the Senate seat long held by the retiring Dianne Feinstein.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Lee, Schiff, and Porter all made appearances here this weekend, and while each candidate has his or her own group of Democratic supporters, attendees here say there is unity on a key topic.
Get out the vote.
That is exactly what these UC Riverside students plan to do as the election approaches, now less than 10 months until California's March 5th primary. They especially want to see an increase in voter turnout from one key demographic who've helped Democrats pick up key seats in previous elections.
Young people were the key deciding vote. We saw a lot of young people energized, voting heavily, 23 points towards the Democrats. And using this energy, I think in 2024, Democrats can take back the House.
I want to canvass, I want to door knock, I want all young people to, canvass and door knock if they can. I definitely think that this is important, and I think that the youth vote can swing the vote.
It's a message labor leader and civil rights activist Dolores Huerta says has long been part of her activism across this blue state.
Young people can actually make the difference in every election. We want that message to go out there to the young people. You're voting for your future.
But to make that a success, she points out, just as the convention theme states, don't agonize, organize. A theme California Young Dems president Giovanni Chavez says he's turning to action.
We're taking the lead on this effort because we're going to be organizing trainings across the entire state and have different trainings for young Democrats, whether they want to be organizers, elected officials, labor leaders, what have you. And they're going to be the backbone of these next upcoming elections.
As he shared during his speech to delegates,
young Democrats are everywhere, they're fired up, and they're ready to get to work.
And as for the party itself, California Democrats will reconvene this November in Sacramento, where they officially will make endorsements for races up and down the ballot. Reporting in downtown LA, Eitan Wallace, 17 News.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.